Good morning, everyone. My name is Tiana, and I am CAM's Senior Manager of Engagement and Programs. Thank you all for joining us this morning. I'm just going to go over a few housekeeping items before we get into today's session. Just FYI, this event will be recorded. We'll also be, I'm so sorry, guys. Give me one second here. This event will be recorded. You all will receive an email link an email with the link to this recording that will be later added to CAM's YouTube page. Just FYI, all participant participation will be removed from the recording to honor your privacy. Captioning is available via Zoom. If you request it, you can send that request to me via the chat box, or you can email me at engagement@calmuseums.org. In reference to the chat box, it will be open the entirety of the presentation today. You're welcome to add questions in there, respond to people's comments, add your own comments, and just connect with each other and our speaker, Kate, today. Kate will be moderating those questions throughout the session and will be answering them for you. If you have any technical issues, just email me via the chat box or message me via the chat box or email me at engagement@calmuseums.org, which I will pop my email in the chat for you. And then just a reminder, today's session will have ample opportunity for you to connect with fellow attendees. There will be breakout rooms. There will be points of connection via the chat box. We just ask that you respect yourself and others while you're interacting with each other. Our workshops are a space for learning and collaboration, so we just want to be respectful to that. The next thing I have is our land acknowledgement. As we begin today's event, we'd like to acknowledge and honor the original inhabitants of our various regions. In case you weren't aware, California is home to over 150 tribes, and an acknowledgement is just one step towards working with Native communities to build meaningful relationships. Museums and many institutions were founded upon purposeful exclusions and erasures of Indigenous peoples, and we still benefit from settler colonialism and associated harms. CAM is committed towards moving beyond land acknowledgements and into action. We encourage you all to learn more about the land that you live and work on to build relationships with the local Native communities and find tangible ways to celebrate, support, and advocate alongside them. I'm going to pop in two resources in the chat in case you would like to learn more about the tribes in your area. I myself am located in San Diego, which is the Kumeyaay land, in case you're wondering. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to you, Kate.
Hi everyone. I think good morning to most of you. I don't know. I see some people that I recognize who I know are not on West Coast time. So good morning, good afternoon, happy Monday, all of that. Let me go ahead and get my own slides up here and then we will get started. All right. And as mentioned by Tiana, feel free to use the chat as much as you like. We are going to have a breakout session a little bit later, but the chat is here for you and I'm going to do my best to monitor it. Tiana's going to help me, so feel free to use that as we go. But I just wanted to start out with a thank you. First of all, to California Association of Museums. It's so cool that I'm able to do this with you all, and I wouldn't be able to without the support of CAM. So I am based in San Diego, close to where Tiana is, and it's just amazing to have a local museum association who promotes this kind of workshop and allows us to be together to do this. So thank you all for being here, the first workshop in the Sustaining Yourself and Your Work in Museums series. See my next slide going. So a lot of you know me or know of me. Probably most of you know me through my work as an evaluator. I'm a consultant at Exposure Museum. But in addition to my consulting, I have been doing leadership and executive coaching for the past 7 years. And that is more the focus of today's workshop. And I love bringing that part of my work to my museum colleagues. So I'm excited about that. I am also someone who collects way too many planners. I have way too many journals and office supplies. I am passionate about those things, but also I'm passionate about joy and about rest. And I'm just so happy to be here with you all today. I've spent a lot of my career helping museums and the people within them reflect and learn and make meaning from their work. And so today I want to create that same room for you. To be able to do that for yourself, which I know is rare. So Tiana mentioned this, but this is going to be a participatory session, but participation can take a lot of different forms. A lot of today is going to be about private reflection. And we're also going to have one breakout conversation to help you kind of process your thinking with others. And then there will be invitations, like I mentioned, to share in the chat or out loud as we go. If I don't see something that's happening in the chat and I don't acknowledge it, apologies, kind of doing a few things at once, but I know Tana will help me and flag anything that seems more urgent. Otherwise, just know that we will get to some of your questions as we go. You're also always welcome to keep things private or to participate more by listening than by talking. So that is totally okay too. So just to kind of kick us off and give us a little bit of an orientation, this is our first of 4 sessions about sustaining yourself and your work in museums. And these sessions are a modification of a full day retreat that I've facilitated for many years as part of my coaching practice. But I think importantly, I also wanted to share their practices that I do routinely, at least yearly, to keep me aligned in my own work. So they're nothing magical, but they're really special. And I feel excited to share them with you. And the way we've created it for CAM and for this series is that each session stands on its own, so you do not need to attend all 4. Across the series, we're going to move from looking back, which is what we're doing today, to identifying our values. That's the next session. And then we'll go to examining our energy and priorities, and finally to setting intentions and next steps. Today, though, you're only looking back. And I say that because I am not going to ask you to set goals or decide what comes next. I really want to offer that reflection is worthwhile in its own right, and it deserves some space before we turn it into like one more plan or one more item on our to-do list. So with that, the biggest ask I'm going to make today is to let this time be a gift for you. The museum work that we all do asks us to be super responsive, right? To our visitors, to our colleagues, to our community members, our boards, deadlines, understaffing, all of the small urgencies and emergencies that kind of keep our institutions going. And even during a workshop like this about sustainability, I know it can be really difficult to stop being like reactive and responding. So I'm hoping that for what's left of this hour, I can offer you something that I think is sadly pretty uncommon for most of us. I know it's uncommon for me, and that's uninterrupted time, where you don't need to produce anything for anyone else. And so, whatever you think or make or create today doesn't need to be polished. You don't need to share it with anyone, your boss, your partner, a friend. Unless you want to, and then that's fine. But I just want us all to take this time for ourselves and really to slow down and to notice what's here. Because again, I think that's a rare thing in our day-to-day lives. So as you reflect, another invitation is I want you to look at your whole life. You know how we often talk about like work life and personal life, like they're separate things, or maybe like separate spaces we inhabit. I do that too, but we only have, as far as I know, this one life. And what happens at work affects everything else. And everything else affects how we arrive at work. So I don't want you to feel like you have to decide whether you're going to focus on like professional reflection today or personal reflection. I hope that you'll allow it to be both. A change in your family or your health, your community, or even the larger world belongs here if it shaped your year and your thinking. And so does a museum project or a new exhibition or a difficult workplace dynamic or a relationship or a loss, an accomplishment, really anything, any moment that mattered. So before we begin, one thing I want to do is ask you to do what you can to protect this space. Again, at this point, we got 50 minutes together. This is not a lot of time, and I want to protect it for you. So close your door if you have one, close your email, your messaging apps, ideally silence your notifications, set your phone aside, or turn it face down. If you can. I know that life happens, so if you can't, I understand, but hopefully we can let those things wait at least until noon Pacific. And as we go through our reflection, if you're anything like me, you might notice the urge to check something. Maybe I'm guiding you through a reflection and you just want to check an email or see if a text has come through. Doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. That's totally human. But if you can, just kind of notice that urge and see if you can let it wait a little while. Because again, I really want this time to be for you. And then I also want to extend this moment to gather the things that might help you do this reflection. So we're going to look back at the past year, and often what helps people is, of course, your calendars. So if you have access to your work calendar, maybe a personal or shared calendar, like a family calendar. If you have access to your photos, maybe some notes, some messages. So you may be picking that phone back up after all, but it'll be for a specific purpose. And you might not have access to all of those things right this second, and that's okay. Just use kind of what you have. And as we reflect, you might choose that you want to write, maybe in a notebook, piece of scrap paper, anything that's around, sticky notes, whatever. You can use your computer, or you might just want to think about things. You don't have to write anything down. You might be someone who sketches or doodles. Anything you choose works. And you can also kind of move between those. So I just wanted to give you a few more seconds to either kind of shut things down if you need to, or gather those supplies that you might need for the reflection. So just give you a little bit to do that. And for people who just came in, we're about to start our reflection, so you came at a really good time. I was just reminding people to ideally close doors, close down, your email notifications, your phone, that sort of thing, just so you can be present. And then also try to gather things you might need for this reflection and looking back, which might be calendars, notes, a journal, a planner, photos, anything like that that you think might help you. All right. So once you've done what you can to kind of protect your time, I want you to ideally find a position and a space that feels comfortable enough, whether or not you're at your desk at work or you're at home or you're on your couch. I welcome you to just kind of get present and get here. I'm not going to lead us through a true guided meditation, though I would like to, but I'm not going to. I just want us to kind of quietly notice how we're showing up. If we are able to leave some things to the side, let yourself wiggle around a little if that helps. And then just arrive here without needing, again, to kind of accomplish anything yet. And if it helps you, I know it helps me, just take a minute to notice your breathing. You don't need to change it, but just check in. Are you breathing fast? Breathing slow? You may already notice that your attention's getting pulled towards something else, and that's okay. Notice that too. And again, just see if we can let that wait for a little bit, because I really want the rest of the time to be yours. Nowhere else you need to be. All right, with that, we're gonna dig in. So most of us spend a great deal of time looking at our calendars. I know I start almost every day looking at my calendar, and we're usually looking ahead. What's on the schedule for this week? Where do I need to be? What do I need to prepare? What's coming next? I think for me, a calendar always feels like it's telling me what to do. It's a little bossy, my calendar. And so for this reflection, I want to change our relationship to our calendars at least a little bit. And I want us to look at our calendars, at least for this time together, as a source of data, as an artifact, kind of a way to help us access and look at the past. So instead of looking forward as to, seeing what's around the corner, what's on our calendar for the rest of the week, I'm going to invite us to look backward. And, this is really essentially one point of access, a tool to help us better understand ourselves. And we're museum people, so maybe think of the past year as an archive of you. And your calendar is kind of one way to access memories and experiences that may not be immediately available to you otherwise, a way to sort of jar those memories that might feel way in the rearview mirror. But, and I mentioned this before, the calendar is really only one record, and it's definitely incomplete. I know my work calendar tends to preserve like what was scheduled and what was visible to others. Oftentimes they're shared. So my calendar might not actually show things like caregiving or birthdays or recovery, the labor I put into things, including emotional labor. It might not include things like meeting up with friends, informal conversations, creative time I spent thinking, relationship building, sort of anything that happens outside of a set time block. So again, often our calendars give us a lot of information, but not everything. So I want your calendar to be one point of information, but I also want you to look beyond your work calendar. And maybe if you have them, your personal or shared calendar, a planner, that sort of thing. But also a great source of information and data is like the photos you took over the last year, notes you made. I text myself. I'm like obsessive about texting myself things. That's like my working memory. So anything you have like that, think about ways you might be able to really pull together some remnants of your last year, those bits and scraps that might kind of unlock so much more in your memory than might appear otherwise on the screen or on paper. It might be kind of things you've accomplished, relationships that have changed, maybe difficult stretches over this past year, unexpected joy or celebrations, and even things that like maybe you carried and nobody else saw. So as you move through the past 12 months, which would be kind of last August 2025 till now, I want you to just go through things and notice what returns to you, like what stands out. And also maybe what seems to be missing from your more kind of formal records. And if you don't want to cover all 12 months, hey, we're already in August. You can just focus on 2026 if that feels better for you. Sometimes a 12-month frame is helpful, but I think it's totally fine if you just want to focus on this calendar year. I mean, we're already in the 8th month. So what this is a way to look back, but it's not an inventory or an audit. Like you don't have to write it all down. I just want to let it be the things that actually get you interested as you look back. What kind of piques your curiosity? So let this kind of archive of you offer you clues and follow whatever feels significant. And you're going to have about 12 minutes to rummage around in this archive of you. And I'm going to offer one heads up when we're at the midpoint, so about 6 minutes in, just so that you know. And then I'll also give you kind of a 2-minute check-in when we're near to the close. But until then, these 12 minutes are yours. I am here. You can ask questions in the chat if you have them, but you're welcome to turn off your camera if you like. You can certainly do that. As during the private reflection, you can turn on music as long as you're muted, whatever helps you. But go ahead and get started on looking back through the last 8 to 12 months at this archive of you. All right. Some of you I know are still working on it. It's a lot to cover, and that's totally okay. You can keep working, but for those of you that need a little bit more and are looking for another prompt, I want to offer several lenses for maybe looking more closely at what you've started to find. The way I think about this is you've already kind of dug up the topsoil. I used to work in a natural history museum, so this is something that came to mind for me. Now it's time for maybe a more delicate tool, something like a brush or a magnifying glass to kind of see what fossils or gems are underneath what you started to find. And so think of these as possibilities, definitely not a checklist. Again, you're not going to have time in this short hour to use every lens that I'm offering, and that's okay. You don't need to. But I offer them to either come back to later or maybe follow the ones today that feel most alive for you. One lens might be looking at standouts over the past year. So as you've been looking through your calendar or your photos or your memories, what are maybe moments or people or wins, or maybe hard stretches that kind of draw your attention? Maybe there are moments of pride, something that you're like, yeah, that was amazing. That deserves to be acknowledged. Maybe even if no one else saw it, what's worth celebrating. So that's one lens. But another might be really looking more closely at what's been difficult. Maybe you've had a hard year and you might notice challenges throughout the year. And of course, there may be a challenge that really was of your own making. I know I can be my own worst enemy, but you might also notice organizational conditions or systemic things or unreasonable expectations put on you or responsibilities you were being asked to carry. Challenge is definitely not automatic evidence that we weren't doing enough or that we lacked the ability to overcome it. Our conditions really matter and they're not always fair. So I think noticing the challenges could be really useful. Another lens I like to use is maybe looking at the strengths that you drew upon. So strengths might be like persistence. You really got through it. Or creativity. You got creative and you looked at things in new ways. But strengths could also be knowing when to ask for help or setting a boundary, really living in alignment with your values. Maybe taking a rest when you needed it or recognizing that something wasn't serving you very well anymore. So you could look at that, or you could look at who supported you. Like who was really there when you needed them, or maybe who was absent that you needed more. I also, of course, love to look at the feelings that come up when I do this. When I'm looking through my calendar, a lot of feelings are present when I look back. So that's a lens you can use as well as what feelings this activity brought up for you and what, if anything, the year taught you, any lessons learned by looking back. So take the next few minutes to go a little deeper or continue with this exercise. I'm just going to give you about 3 or 4 more minutes to see if any of those lenses help you kind of take it one level deeper, and then we'll come back. Okay, wherever you are is exactly the right place to be. You have done the hard part, and I'm sure for some of you, that was awesome and you loved it and it sparked a lot of insights. And for others, you're like, I'm getting started. I struggled with it, and that is perfectly okay. I just want to, plant a few seeds of some ways to look and be reflective with your calendar today. And I hope this at least got you started. And in a moment, Tiana from the Awesome Cam team is going to place you in breakout rooms of 2 or 3 people. And you're going to have about 9 minutes. I think we're right on time. So you have about 9 minutes, which might seem reasonable, maybe even generous, but I know the time's going to go really quickly. You don't need to summarize your whole last year. That would take all the time and then some. And you don't need to give your group full context. But I would love for each of you to just maybe choose one thing you're noticing, one thing that came up for you, and then leave room for the others in your group to do the same. And if you're someone who likes a prompt, you can certainly screenshot what I've got here. You might answer this question, kind of, what are you noticing now that was difficult to see when you were living it? Essentially that hindsight is 2020 thing. What are you noticing now that was difficult to see while you were living it? And you might share a pattern or a strength or a source of support. Some of those lenses that I mentioned, maybe a lesson that's become more clear now that you're looking back. And when you get to your room, of course, feel free to say hello, introduce yourselves. Hopefully you can use video and say who you are and where you're from, but then jump into it. One of you just take the lead. If you're in a group of 3, have roughly 3 minutes for each of you and talk about what emerged. If you'd rather keep things private, it's also totally okay to talk about how the process was for you, how it felt to look back, things you noticed about how it went for you. And I'm not going to ask your groups to report back, so do not worry about that. Just take the time to be with one another and share. And the reason I'm having you do this is sometimes sharing our reflections out loud and with others helps things become even more clear. So I hope that it will do that for you. And when you're listening to others, please just listen to understand. You don't have to advise them or fix anything. Just hold space for each other and your reflections. So again, I'll let you know when you're at the halfway mark and also when there's a minute left. And so yeah, Tiana, when you're ready, you can send folks into groups of 3. Know that they're never as long as we need. So I'm going to invite a brief little harvest in the chat, not a report out from your group, like I said, not the whole story of your past year, although I would love that, but maybe the opportunity to share a word or a short phrase about what you noticed through the experience of looking back. You might share something you noticed about your year or something about the process of reflecting, maybe a pattern. So I'm just going to give you a few seconds to maybe pop something in the chat just so you can hear from people who weren't in your breakout room. I'll do one as well.